Every NFL origin explained in 10 minutes. The birth of the NFL. The NFL wasn't born in a stadium. It started inside a dusty car showroom in Canton, Ohio. 10 men, 14 teams, and $100 each. They called it the American Professional Football Association. In 1922, they changed the name to the National Football League, and history began. Back then, the game was chaos. No logos, no TV cameras, barely any fans. Players worked day jobs at factories and steel mills, earning $5 to play on Sunday. They wore leather helmets, no face masks, and played on fields that looked more like cornfields than gridirons. But even in that chaos, two teams rose above the rest. George Halas's Chicago Bears and Curly Lambeau's Green Bay Packers. They were neighbors, rivals, and architects of the sport. By 1921, they were already trading punches that would echo for more than a century. The NFL's first true rivalry was born before the league even had a trophy to fight for. At the time, if you wanted to join this new league, you brought cash, $100 for a franchise, and hope your team survived the season. Most didn't. Over 75 teams would come and go before the NFL settled on the 32 we know today. Two of those originals still stand. The Bears and the Cardinals, who started as the Chicago Cardinals and now nest in Arizona. The Cardinals' name? A misunderstanding that turned into tradition. Their owner bought old uniforms from the Chicago Maroons. When someone said they looked maroon, he corrected them. Those aren't maroon, that's cardinal red. That red became legacy. So did the Akron Pros, the team that won the NFL's first championship. Undefeated, 8 wins, 0 losses, and 3 ties. They didn't get rings. They got gold football pendants small enough to fit on a keychain. Their championship trophy, the Brunswick Balke Colander Cup, was lost after 1 season. Only one photo of it exists. To this day, it's considered one of the great mysteries in league lore. Still, from those muddy beginnings came a blueprint for everything that followed: competition, innovation, and the pursuit of greatness. The 100-year odyssey of the National Football League had officially begun. Expansion and survival. By the mid-1920s, football was still fighting to stay alive. Crowds were small, stadiums were tiny, and most of the teams were located within a few hundred miles of Chicago. But one tiny town in Wisconsin was about to change everything. In 1919, Curly Lambeau convinced his employer, the Indian Packing Company, to put up $500 for uniforms and equipment. That small investment gave birth to the Green Bay Packers, the only community-owned franchise in American sports. While other teams folded, Green Bay survived because the fans literally owned a piece of the team. When the league started requiring a $2,500 franchise fee, Green Bay's fans passed a hat to keep their team in business. Throughout the 1920s, the NFL expanded and contracted in equal measure. Teams came and went so fast that some, like the Tonawanda Cardex, played only one official game before disappearing forever. It was football's version of the Wild West. No schedules, no national TV, and no forward pass fireworks. Just grit, mud, and chaos. But the league was learning how to organize. In 1925, a college superstar named Red Grange turned pro, signing with the Chicago Bears. His arrival filled stadiums, brought national headlines, and legitimized the NFL overnight. The Bears barnstormed the country, playing games in baseball parks and cow pastures just to meet the demand to see the galloping ghost. That same decade saw the league's first scandals. Players were paid under the table, refs were accused of favoritism, and franchises often borrowed players from each other mid-season. The NFL pushed forward. By 1933, the league finally stabilized, dividing itself into 2 divisions, East and West, and introducing something revolutionary: the NFL Championship game. For the first time, fans would see a real postseason, an East versus West showdown for the right to call themselves world champions. It wasn't the Super Bowl yet, but it planted the seed. Out of financial desperation came innovation. The NFL learned how to market stars, sell tickets, and build rivalries that would last a lifetime. Through the Great Depression, through empty stands and lost paychecks, the league didn't just survive, it adapted. And that resilience would define everything that came next. The war years and the birth of modern football, 1940s to 1950s. The 1940s hit the NFL like a blitz. America was at war, and so was football. Thousands of players left the field for the front lines. Rosters were gutted, teams folded, merged, or borrowed, whoever was left standing. In 1943, the league had so few players available that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Philadelphia Eagles literally combined forces, forming one of the strangest franchises in history, the Steagles. For one season, these patched-together warriors represented both cities. They trained separately, argued constantly, but somehow finished with a winning record. The next year, Pittsburgh paired with the Chicago Cardinals to create Card Pit. That experiment went 0-10. It's still considered one of the worst teams to ever take an NFL field. Even in chaos, innovation thrived. In 1943, helmets became mandatory for the first time. By 1945, the league legalized passes from anywhere behind the line of scrimmage, unlocking the modern forward pass. And that same year, a rule changed after one bizarre play. In the 1945 NFL Championship, Washington's Sammy Baugh threw a pass from his own end zone that hit the crossbar and bounced back, counted as a safety. It cost Washington the game. The next season, the rule was changed. No more safeties on incomplete passes. When the war ended, the NFL got its first true football scientist, Paul Brown. Yes, the man Cleveland is named after, turned coaching into a discipline. He introduced playbooks, film study, full-time assistants, even face masks. He called plays from the sideline, sent them in by messenger guards, and later experimented with radio helmets, decades before the rest of the league caught up. Brown's Cleveland Browns dominated the rival All-America Football Conference, AAFC, from 1946 to 1949, winning all 4 titles. When the AAFC merged with the NFL in 1950, the Browns stepped into the big league and immediately won the championship. It was like a new team showing up and crushing the old guard overnight, proof that football was evolving faster than anyone realized. The 1940s and 50s birthed the first generation of truly national football icons. Sammy Baugh, the NFL's first great passer, redefined the quarterback position. Otto Graham, under Paul Brown, led Cleveland to 10 straight championship games. Marion Motley and Bill Willis, also Browns, shattered the color barrier in 1946. And then there was Steve Van Buren of the Eagles, bulldozing through mud-soaked championship fields in back-to-back title wins. By the mid-1950s, the NFL wasn't just surviving anymore. It was thriving. It had stars, structure, and strategy. And thanks to television, it was about to have something even bigger. Fans in every living room in America. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. The television boom and the Super Bowl era. The invention of television turned America's gridiron obsession into a national spectacle. For the first time, families could gather around a flickering screen and watch legends collide live from their living rooms. 1958 Yankee Stadium, the NFL championship game between the Baltimore Colts and New York Giants. The game went into sudden death overtime. The first time it ever happened in a title game. Johnny Unitas drove the Colts 80 yards down the field, throwing darts through the cold New York air before Alan Ameche punched it in for the win. Final score, 23-17. It was broadcast to 45 million people across the country. The game was so intense, so dramatic, that it was instantly dubbed the greatest game ever played. That one game made Americans fall in love with professional football. It transformed the NFL from a regional sport into a national powerhouse. But success breeds competition. In 1960, a bold group of owners, led by a young, sharp-tongued Al Davis, launched the American Football League. It was faster, flashier, and less conservative. The AFL threw deep. They played for fun and flash. Fans loved it. Players loved it even more because the new league actually paid them what they were worth. They introduced names and styles that became legend. The Kansas City Chiefs and their wild trick plays. The Buffalo Bills and their high-powered passing attacks. The New York Jets, led by a swaggering Broadway quarterback named Joe Namath. Namath became the face of the AFL, especially after he guaranteed a Super Bowl win over the NFL's mighty Colts, and delivered. That upset in Super Bowl III proved one thing: the AFL was just as good as the NFL, the merger and the birth of the Super Bowl. In 1970, the leagues made it official. The AFL-NFL merger was complete. 26 teams were unified under one banner: the National Football League. The AFL's wide-open offenses met the NFL's powerhouse defenses. The result was a faster, more exciting product than ever before. The new championship game, they called it the Super Bowl, and it instantly became the biggest single-day sporting event in the world. A golden age of legends. The 70s were a war zone of dynasties. The Pittsburgh Steelers, powered by Chuck Noll's steel curtain defense, won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. The Dallas Cowboys, led by the stoic Tom Landry and America's Team Aura, became cultural icons. The Miami Dolphins went undefeated in 1972, a record that still stands. The Oakland Raiders, under Al Davis's "Just Win Baby" mantra, played with swagger and grit. From Terry Bradshaw's bombs to Roger Staubach's comebacks, the game was full of heroes, and every one of them played in front of millions. By the end of the decade, the NFL wasn't just the most popular sport in America, it was America. The modernization of the NFL, the era of superstars and free agency. Monday Night Football was already a hit, but in the 1980s, it became a cultural ritual. Frank Gifford, Howard Cosell, and Dandy Don Meredith turned play-by-play into primetime theater. The league discovered something huge. The NFL was more than a sport. It was a show. Owners leaned into it. Halftime productions grew. Network deals exploded. By 1987, the league was signing contracts worth hundreds of millions. Money that would fuel the next revolution. With all that money, the players wanted their share. Labor strikes in 1982 and 1987 brought chaos and change. Replacement players filled rosters. Stadiums looked strange. But in the end, it led to something vital: true free agency and the salary cap. Now, players controlled their futures. They could choose their team, their city, and their worth. The 1990s NFL became a chessboard of contracts, cap space, and superstar power. The game was faster, flashier, and louder. Athletes became brands. Joe Montana and Jerry Rice turned San Francisco's West Coast offense into football poetry. Lawrence Taylor changed defense forever. One man, wrecking entire game plans. Dan Marino threw the ball like a laser before most teams even trusted the forward pass. Walter Payton, sweetness, ran with grace and grit, embodying the heart of the game. Endorsements, video games, and commercials made them household names. By the time Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson were starring in Nike ads and playing 2 sports, football had gone Hollywood. Free agency and the salary cap ended the era of decade-long dynasties. Teams had to draft smarter, spend carefully, and innovate constantly. The 1990s became a carousel of champions. The 49ers of Joe Montana and Steve Young. The Cowboys of Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin. The Broncos of John Elway, finally breaking through in 1997 and 1998. The Packers, reborn under Brett Favre, and a brash new coach named Mike Holmgren. By the end of the 90s, football was being broadcast in over 150 countries. Games were being played in Mexico, Japan, Germany, and London. And just when the century turned, the stage was set for a new kind of empire. The 2000s, the Patriot Dynasty, and the digital boom. The 2000s marked the NFL's transformation from America's favorite sport into a worldwide obsession. This wasn't just football. It was brand power, storylines, and empires built on precision. And leading the charge? A hoodie-wearing mastermind and a 6th-round draft pick who rewrote history. It started quietly. 2001, Foxborough, Massachusetts. Tom Brady, an unheralded backup with a chip on his shoulder, took over for the injured Drew Bledsoe. No one outside New England knew his name, but Bill Belichick did. Together, they became the NFL's version of a machine, not built on flash, but discipline, details, and defense. The Patriots won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, every game close, every decision calculated. The salary cap worked. Unlike the dynasties of the 70s or 80s, no one could hoard talent anymore. Every season, new contenders emerged: Steelers, Colts, Giants, Ravens, Saints. The games became tighter, the margins thinner, and every January felt like chaos. Wildcard teams started winning championships. Underdogs weren't flukes anymore. They were built for moments like these. The early 2000s ushered in the golden age of QBs. Brady was the winner. Peyton Manning was the scientist. Brett Favre, the gunslinger. Drew Brees, the precision artist. And then came the next generation: Roethlisberger, Rodgers, Eli, and eventually Mahomes. Each one had a different style, but they all defined an era that turned passing into poetry. The league that once revolved around running backs now lived in the air. The 2000s changed how fans experienced football. Fantasy football became a billion-dollar obsession. YouTube highlights, Madden NFL, and later social media made players global celebrities overnight. Sunday wasn't just game day anymore. It was content day. And with the NFL's expansion into London, Mexico, and streaming deals, it became clear football wasn't just America's sport. It was Earth's favorite soap opera. Dynasties attract controversy: Spygate, Deflategate, Bountygate. It seemed like every year another headline blurred the line between genius and gamesmanship. But controversy never slowed the NFL. It fueled it. Every argument, every hot take, every "did they cheat?" It only made the game bigger. The decade ended where it began, with Brady and Belichick still on top. But now, they weren't underdogs. They were the standard. In their wake stood legends who had taken their own paths: Peyton's cerebral Colts, the Steelers' hard-nosed grit, the Giants' improbable Super Bowl upsets. Each game, each moment, fed into the mythos of a league that had never been bigger, louder, or more addictive. The NFL had conquered television, and now it had conquered time. From dynasty to database, the game belonged to the world. The age of analytics, activism, and ascension. By the dawn of the 2010s, football had become a spectacle, not just a game, but a living organism of data, culture, and drama. The sport had grown too big for its own boundaries, and the decade would test every one of them. The 2010s marked the dawn of the analytics era. Every yard, every block, every second mattered, not just to coaches, but to computers. Front offices hired data scientists. Play callers leaned on probabilities instead of gut feelings. 4th and 1 became a math problem, not a gamble. Teams like the Eagles and Ravens weaponized analytics, blending old-school grit with algorithmic precision. Numbers had become the new gospel. Dynasties of the decade were built differently. The Patriots weren't alone anymore. The Seahawks and Chiefs joined the conversation. Seattle's Legion of Boom changed defensive football forever. Their bruising secondary and balanced offense gave birth to a new formula: intimidation, precision, and unity. Then came Patrick Mahomes, football's human highlight reel. With an arm that ignored geometry and an improvisational style born for social media, he brought back backyard football to a league built on structure. He was Steph Curry in shoulder pads. Chaos as art form. If the 1970s belonged to the Steelers' defense and the 1980s to Montana's grace, the 2000s belonged to the play callers: Sean Payton, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid. Offense was no longer about balance. It was about speed and space. Screens, motions, jet sweeps, and RPOS turned every down into deception. Quarterbacks became point guards. Receivers became chess pieces. And scoring 50 no longer guaranteed victory. It just meant you were in a shootout. Off the field, the NFL faced its biggest cultural reckoning. Colin Kaepernick's protest in 2016 shattered the idea that football could stay apolitical. The league, the fans, and the players all wrestled with the question: could you love the game and still challenge its silence? The NFL became a mirror of America, reflecting both its unity and its divide. The NFL's empire wasn't just built in stadiums anymore. It lived on phones, on memes, and in time zones that didn't care about kickoff. International games drew millions of fans in London, Mexico City, and Germany. You didn't need to live near a team to live for one. Streaming deals with Amazon and YouTube opened new gates. The NFL had officially become a global digital colossus. If the 2000s built the Brady-Belichick empire, the 2000s cemented Tom Brady as more than a dynasty. He became an era. 5 rings turned into 6. 6 into 7. The kid from Michigan had outlasted systems, scandals, and even time itself. Every game he won rewrote history. Every comeback, a lesson in inevitability. From 28-3 to Tampa Bay, Brady's story wasn't luck. It was obsession, evolution, and the relentless pursuit of forever. By 2019, legends faded. Brees, Rivers, Roethlisberger, Eli. The generation that grew up in the post-Madden boom had finally passed the torch, and the game they left behind looked nothing like the one they inherited. Now it was faster, smarter, more global, more human. It wasn't a sport anymore. It was an ecosystem, fueled by data, driven by storylines, and shaped by people who believed it could be more. The game had evolved, and its next generation was already waiting in the wings. Pandemic, parody, and the post-Brady world. The 2020s began with silence. No roaring crowds. No thunderous intros. Just empty stadiums echoing the sound of a world on pause. But football, like it always has, adapted. And what followed was a decade that would reshape the sport's DNA forever. Coaches wore masks. Sideline interviews became Zoom calls. And entire rosters were tested daily, playing through protocols instead of pain. The roar of the crowd was replaced by artificial cheers. Cheerleaders vanished, mascots stayed home, and stadiums stood as empty monuments. Yet somehow, in that stillness, football found focus. It was the most human season ever, players stripped of spectacle, forced to rely on discipline and love for the game itself. In a year defined by uncertainty, one thing remained constant: Tom Brady's defiance of time. At 43 years old, he left New England after 2 decades, taking his legend south to Tampa Bay. No one expected what came next: a brand new playbook, a new team, a pandemic. And still, Brady did what he always did. The Buccaneers dismantled the Chiefs, and Brady raised his 7th Lombardi, the most by any player in NFL history. As Brady's dynasty dimmed, the league began to balance. No longer were there clear favorites. Any given Sunday truly meant something again. The Bengals rose from ashes. The Eagles reinvented themselves. Teams like the Jaguars, Jets, and Lions, long the league's punchlines, suddenly started to look dangerous. Young stars became the new face of the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Each represented a new style of quarterback: fast, fearless, and unshackled by tradition. The NFL had entered the age of offensive evolution. While the field evolved, so did the players. The aftermath of 2020 social unrest saw the NFL reckon with race, equality, and representation. End zones read "End Racism." The national anthem was joined by "Lift Every Voice and Sing," and the shield that once resisted change began to slowly embrace it. Players now owned their image. Podcasts replaced press conferences. The NFL had finally become what it always resisted: personal. The 2020s also saw the NFL go fully digital. Next-gen stats turned every route, sprint, and tackle into data. Referees wore cameras. Fans wore VR headsets. AI broke down game film faster than coordinators could. Even officiating got smarter. Sky judges, real-time reviews, chips in footballs to measure first downs. The game was no longer bound by human error. It was becoming a hybrid of man and machine. By the mid-2020s, football had gone global. London, Munich, and Mexico City became regular stops. Rumors of a European division no longer felt far-fetched. The NFL had officially evolved into an international empire. Viewers tuned in from every continent. Games streamed on phones, tablets, and even smart cars. As the decade marched on, the old guard finally faded. Brady retired, for good this time. Mahomes became the heir apparent. Burrow, Hurts, Allen, and Herbert, the challengers. And from chaos came balance. A league where no dynasty could last long, because every team was one off-season away from greatness. From the silence of 2020 to the chaos of overtime thrillers, the decade proved one thing: the NFL doesn't break, it bends. It evolves, it learns, it adapts. And it's now more than just a game of inches. It's a game of innovation, of inclusion, and of inevitability. Because if history has shown anything, no matter the storm, no matter the silence, football always finds a way to play on. The future of the NFL. Beyond the field, beyond the planet. Football has always evolved with the times. From muddy fields and leather helmets, to billion-dollar stadiums and digital broadcasts. But the next chapter isn't just about who wins the next Super Bowl. It's about where the game goes next and what it becomes. The NFL of the future won't just be played in America. It won't just be played on grass. It might not even be played on Earth. We're already seeing the signs. 4K drones hovering over games, microchips in the football tracking airspeed and spin rate, and entire cities built around sports entertainment. By 2050, augmented reality fields may allow fans to stand in the end zone with their favorite player. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see the first zero-gravity pass at a Mars colony scrimmage. The NFL's ultimate expansion team. Athletes are becoming superhuman, not through steroids or shortcuts, but science. Biomechanics labs fine-tune every sprint, every throw. Wearable sensors calculate sleep cycles and muscle recovery in real time. Quarterbacks will train with AI assistants that read defenses faster than any coordinator could. And the NFL Combine? It won't just test the 40-yard dash, it'll test mental bandwidth, reaction time, and neuroresponse speed. The athletes of tomorrow will be part human, part machine, built for a sport that never sleeps. Playbooks are turning into algorithms. Coaches are leaning on AI to call plays in real time, adjusting to down and distance probabilities instantly. Referees will vanish from the field entirely, replaced by automated vision systems that track every inch of turf, every toe tap, every hold. Human error will fade, but so will human excuses. And in this new version of football, decision-making becomes faster, but maybe less human. That's the trade-off for perfection. The NFL is already halfway there. But the future is immersive. No more watching from your couch. You'll enter the broadcast. A VR camera on Patrick Mahomes' helmet will let you see what he sees. A fan in Tokyo can sit next to a fan in Kansas City. You'll feel the hit, hear the huddle, smell the turf. Every fan becomes a participant. Every game becomes an experience. In the coming decades, ownership will change hands. Not to billionaires, but to entire communities. Imagine a blockchain-driven league where fans own stakes in their teams, vote on uniforms, and even approve trades. The cap won't just track cash, it'll track influence. Analytics departments will evolve into war rooms that resemble NASA mission control. Every movement, every heartbeat, every decision turned into data. The teams that master that data will dominate. As the sport advances, so does its awareness. The next wave of players will grow up knowing the risks of CTE, the power of their platforms, and the weight of their influence. The NFL's future is as much about empathy as it is efficiency, diversity in ownership, representation in coaching, and safety. Not as a slogan, but as science. The future of football isn't about avoiding hits. It's about ensuring every hit is survivable. The league that started with 14 teams and $100 in dues is now worth $150 billion and counting. And yet, it's still defined by the same thing it was in 1920, the human spirit of competition. The uniforms change, the helmets evolve, the stadiums turn into cities, but the essence remains. One ball, two end zones, and a dream. And when historians look back on the NFL's journey, from muddy fields to Martian colonies, they'll see one undeniable truth. The game was never just about winning. It was about enduring, adapting, becoming something greater than it was before. Because football doesn't end at the whistle. It lives in the hearts of those who play it, those who watch it, and those who build what comes next. The next 100 years, they won't just be about football. They'll be about what football teaches us, about technology, teamwork, and the power of never giving up. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.